So fellas, happy Easter, y'all. Beautiful Sunday morning out, but I'm going to show you real quick what's going on with the truck. I got to this point, intending to take the heads off, and I knocked a crap load of dirt into the engine from the valve cover because there was all kinds of crap in here. I vacuumed off the intake and stuff before. I pulled everything apart. I neglected to get in the valve covers. There was all kinds of crud in there. And this bolt is so corroded that the head is like gone. It's almost, I can't get any kind of a socket on there to break her loose. So that, and then like I said, knocking dirt in there, and then that swolled up oil pan gaskets kind of got me thinking I'll pull the engine. I know this thing has devolved from one little thing to another to another. So I'm already there, and it'll save me some work because trying to get them rusted bolts off the exhaust manifolds, and I'm probably gonna have to cut this valve cover off to get at the head bolts there. So all that's got me thinking I'd just rather do that stuff on the engine stand, put a new pan gasket in, a new oil pump, drive shaft, oil pump. I don't want to try doing that in the truck. Just trying to prevent issues down the road. Whether Brandon gets the truck or I keep it or whatever, whoever buys it next is just little preventative maintenance. And as these have a tendency to swizzle the drive shaft, at the most inopportune time, I think, like I said, I just want to prevent some issues before they occur. And I know Rodney gonna crow about me having a different engine or what, he gonna crow about something. I told him, I stated up front, I thought this would do 11s, and that was kind of like when I had the old, was gonna just run E7s or Porta E7s. So even if with the Explorers it picks up more, which it should, it still ain't gonna run no better than like a mid-9 and the mid-70s, on a good day. So street tires, I ain't got no drag radials, I ain't got no 456s, I ain't got all that aftermarket cam like the van's got, and the stall converter. I might put a shift kit in here, and this might be a couple 100 pounds lighter, but I figured when I bought this that Spire rod to get the break out the drag van for mothballs, and now I guess it did. But now putting Explorer heads on and the Mustang cam, I guess it got him shook, or he's had to convert it to carb. I ain't salty at him for doing it. Like I told him before, it didn't run really good at first when we first put the sequential EFI on. But that's really basic speed density. The batch fire, I guess, is more tolerant than the later ones because they don't like vacuum leaks, as I showed on my car, that one. So I told him it could convert it to mass air, but we never got together on it, get our schedules lined up to do that. He didn't want to spend money for a conversion kit, and I told him, well, I can get the lead from a junkyard, just the lead to the mass air, and I said we could do it that way. I said that's easy enough. But we he never made that happen, and I kind of get his thing. Like I said, I'm not salty at all, and we did work on it. It was a good experience for me to make that happen. But I'm not mad. The deal for him is if he's got EFI and he needs to fix something on it, like the tune or whatever, or to tune it at all, he's got to wait for when I can get over there, or he can come here or whatever. I get his side of it. So like I said, I'm not salty, and we've had the conversation, him and I, and a lot of others, about EFI versus carb. And I said the main thing is, if the intake's the same, then there's no difference. But You know, if you're going to run a single plane EFI, you either have to use the aftermarket system or use the factory system and get a tune for it, and then you're kind of limited to what kind of a cam. You know, if you use the factory, like I got in the Trooper car. So, you know, the carb is maybe a little cheaper when you compare buying a carb and an intake versus buying like a Holley aftermarket system. So a lot goes into it. Depends what you want to do. For what we're doing, usually the carb is going to be a little faster because it's, you know, the cars are lighter and blah blah blah. If you put a single plane and a carb on like a convertible with a high gear, then the EFI with the long runners, you know, to get more torque might be better. So it all depends, as the situation or the story says. So that in mind, like I said, on the engine, this is the interior. I did buy a new stereo for it. I haven't put it in yet. It's not showed up yet, but this is all the new goodies that are going in. Ported mufflers. I know, I got him shook. He got race bullets though. And then back here is just like where I'm storing stuff, so it's not in my way in the garage. The fan and did up the power steering bracket and all that. Alternate. This is the power steering and AC bracket. All the stuff I took off is going in here for the most part, just in case, you know, sometime down the road somebody wants to convert it back to what it was. I don't know why, but they'll have the stuff. And in here, this maze of junk. I finished converting these over to for spring mount, or machining them for dual springs. I use this arbor. Comp cam is 4732. It's the arbor. That's the part that goes here. You know, you put the drill on it. There's two different kinds of cutters. This one, the 33, excuse me, that makes machines it down so you could use like a 144 spring. You see the gap in there? So that would be like the way these are factory. With that, you can still use the factory valve seal, but then it would be narrower for the so you could have dual springs. Or you can do this one, the 4715, and that does it for the 500 valve seal, and you can run like a 1.3 spring on it. So I've used both. I like the 500 because you can use a smaller spring. If you got a smaller spring, you can go with lower spring rates. If you got a bigger spring, then you need to have a little higher spring rates. So I could run with these. I can run, you know, I can stay under 400 pounds on the rate and still have a pretty stout spring on it. I washed this one yesterday in the parts washer at work, and to my dismay, that epoxy came out. This is the steel wool I had in between. So what I did is I jammed steel wool into that hole in there, and then I put epoxy on either side of it. Well, I think what happened was when the epoxy dried, it shrunk, and then so water got in there, and the water at the parts washer is like 190 degrees, and it's got 120 psi behind it. So what I'll do is do this last after everything's washed and cleaned real good, and then see how it works out. I've got this epoxy on the heads that I did for Kyle and Pirate. I don't think Kyle's got his together yet, and Pirate is still running his. Basically, the only way we're going to know is if somebody runs it and then they take the take the head off or the intake off and look at it, see how it does. Oh, these are the springs I got. They're 8017s. Come on, they're brand new takeoffs from my AFR 165 head that a guy bought, and he converted to 80 or upgraded to 8019s. These are the valve seals, valve keepers, and retainers. And I had the seats around here somewhere, but all that comes in a kit I got from Flowtech Induction. Had spec'd out what I needed and for them springs, and that's what it came. So once I get both heads cleaned, everything ready to put together, then I can put all that stuff on. I got something to show you outside here in just a second. All right, fellas, this is the Explorer lower that I'm working on. Got a long ways to go. I kind of roughed these in. A lot of emphasis on rough. I took this oil tray or baffle off last night, and I'm going to put an aluminum one, covers the whole bottom. These come out easy enough. I just ground a notch in them with a death wheel and then put a screwdriver on them. They turn them out. I gave them a little whack on the top first, kind of break them loose. They came out real easy. So these are just going to be matched to the heads. Before I put any work in there, I run a tap through all the bolt holes and everything with threads on it. Run a tap in it. And I had washed this off at my work yesterday too, because it was pretty nasty. And then the other thing, the last thing, this is what I cut off. This. This is the sacrificial Explorer upper. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to do any of this yet. I'm just kind of seeing what I can do so far. I'm not going to pay to have it welded until after I get the truck running, and I'm sure I can tune it. So what I'm going to do is have 2 throttle bodies on here. I'm going to mount them over here like so. It's not going to fit like that, obviously, but the point is to have 2 functioning Explorer throttle bodies on here, and then maybe do some work in there before I get too crazy with it. But and I'm thinking of putting like a block off plate on that, just have it tacked in. And what I want to do is be able to get this so it's kind of smooth all the way across, and then just have a little shelf right there with that bolt or stud on it with a nut. Either way can come up. I just got to cut it off. I'll probably have to find somebody with a plasma cutter. But yeah, I hacked that off with a circular saw with a wood blade on it yesterday. That shit throws a lot of, or that thing throws a lot of not sawdust, but aluminum dust that sometimes can embed in you pretty hard. So yeah, that's what's happening there. That is quite a disaster in the making. But anyway, like I said, I'm just more of the pimp rating than making any more power. It's just one of the EFI life. Try to make the most of what you got. All right, I'm going to put all this together and get her put up on the YouTube. Oh, one more thing. Rod has graciously donated the 24-pound injectors from Drag Van for this, because I was a little suspect the 19s would be maxed out. So thank you, Rod, for doing that. Haven't gone over to get him, but will sometime. All right, again, appreciate y'all. Thanks for subscribing and the interactions. And also shout out to the guy, I forget his name now, but he said to call it the Nitening versus the Night, the Lightning Night mix. I thought it was pretty cool. But thanks for your all the interactions. All right, fellas, later.